Welcome. How you doing now?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
I'm very well.
That's it, brother.
Welcome again to M.A.D Musos, Mum and Dad Musos. Today, we're going to be looking at a few different segments. First of all, we're going to do our gear spotlight. Since you're getting to know us, we're going to be looking at we showed you our main instrument last podcast. This time we're going to show you another one of our instruments. Following that, we'll be looking at things like practice tips, practice routines and regimes. We'll review a piece of gear. It could be it's going to be the Maxon Sonic Distortion, the SD9. And following that, we'll be looking at a artist, a dad, who we interviewed during COVID, wasn't it? Yeah. And we did it via correspondence because we were in lockdown then. And so we're going to be featuring him. So that was done way back in the first Melbourne lockdown. And we're going to get a performance from him as well. Well, he'll show you what he can do and what he does. And following that, we are revisiting Van Halen, but the Van Hagar era. And we're looking specifically at the album 5150. And then to top that off, you'll see Matt's performance.
Sounds great.
How are you, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
We had a good weekend, didn't we?
We certainly did.
You want to tell the people what we did?
We had a bit of a celebration for my son's 18th down at the Mr. Boogeyman Bar on Huddle Street, Abbotsford, and that's owned by Jax. And hello, Jax. She was fantastic. We got to play with a band called Jaded Cats, who are also the band that does the Whole Lot of Zepp cover band. That's run by George. Hey, George. And Steph and I got to play, and my son, we got to play with them.
We might feature some of that footage, actually. We might edit some of that in, I think.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And that was a really good night. You know, there's a lot of support there, and the vibe was electric.
Elvis's son, Carl. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
What a drummer he is. Yeah, phenomenal.
Yeah, he did well.
He's only been playing 4 years, and yeah.
He had some challenging songs, and he
nailed them, dude.
He did. He nailed them. He did well.
Yeah, he really did well.
Yeah, pretty proud of him. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It was an awesome moment seeing the two of you up on stage playing together too.
Thanks. It did feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit surreal actually, to sit there and watching him do his thing, you know, because I remember when he first got his drum kit. So
yeah,
I think he was before his 15th birthday. God, I'm trying to remember now.
Yeah,
would have been about 15. Yeah, so he's 18 now. So yeah, wow. I remember just him playing when I got him the kit for Christmas, just getting on there and playing some kind of rhythm. I thought, okay, I had no idea that he could play.
Well, he has kicked butt. He's done really well. Amazing.
Yeah, thanks, man. I guess he's put in the work. So
yeah, exactly.
There's, anyone that plays music understands if you don't put in the effort, you don't get the results.
Yeah.
So it was great. It was a great night. It was great to see you ripping your riffs apart there, Steph. With you really got me, and a random blues jam, which was Steph and I and Carl, and Matt from Jaded Cats was on the vocals, and it was awesome.
Amazing vocalist too.
Yeah.
Shout out to Matt.
Wow.
McAuliffe, I think his name is. Yeah, Matt McAuliffe.
Yeah,
amazing singer.
Yeah, he's got a hell of a voice. He can play. He can sing. Zeppelin, AC/DC, Sabbath, Cream, Hendrix. He does it all.
Yeah, yeah.
From that kind of genre of music, and Well, the band themselves are quite exceptional. So,
Yeah.
Sash on drums, Brendan on bass. I mean, let's face it, to play in a Led Zeppelin cover band, to the detail that they bring in
Yeah.
is exceptional.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because
Agreed wholeheartedly.
it ain't easy.
Yeah.
It ain't easy to replicate that energy.
Yep.
So yeah, that was a great,
Awesome night.
It was. Thanks again, Jax.
All right, Elvis. How about we gear spotlight? You show us your next bass.
Okay. Well, the next one in my collection is a Fender P bass, but it's a 50s reissue, so it's the vintage, or Vintera they call it. It's a replica of, I guess, a golden era of Fender P bass in the 50s. So it's your C-shaped neck, your wide neck. It's got the revoiced single coil pickups, P-bass pickups, which kind of they define that old school sound. Your standard volume, tone control, anodized aluminium scratch plate. It's got that kind of vintage red. It's not heavy. It punches through.
Oh yeah.
The mids on this thing really punch through on a mix. It's a beautiful bass. It is a Fender, and no, it's not an American Fender. It was made in Mexico, but I can tell you it sounds pretty damn good and feels very nice. They've tried to pretty much replicate the model in the 50s, so it's got that kind of look, It's almost like that hot rod red type of look, which was big with the cars and all sorts of things in the 50s, whether it was furniture or whether it was kitchen appliances.
Yeah. It's classic colours.
It was a classic colour, yeah. So it's a beautiful bass. It's got your old it's got the old school sound, and it's just whether you're running, whatever you're doing. Gorgeous. 20 frets, standard P bass, 20 frets.
Yep.
It's a workhorse.
Yep.
These things are a workhorse, and it's a bolt-on neck, with the 4 screws, and
yeah.
Beautiful,
man.
They call it's part of the Vintera series. They released, and I purchased this from the Bass Centre down there at South Melbourne.
What did you pay for it?
I think it was retailing at 18, but I paid $1,500 for it. Now, if you were to buy, an American equivalent of, not a 50s, because if it was original 50s in good condition, you're talking tens of thousands.
Yeah.
But to even buy a decent American P bass, you're looking at a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
A few. I had a 73 P bass 10 years ago, and it was about $3,000 at the time. So, $1,500 for something like this, and it's brand new.
It's beautiful.
Really, really worthwhile.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous looking bass. And the neck is, it is a wide, the C-shape, wide neck, but it feels nice.
Comfortable?
It's a workhorse, as P basses have been from day one.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous, you know. It's yeah, I recommend it. Go down there and see Mel and the boys, Dave, Darren, Guy. They'll look after you.
Yeah, they do. They're lovely
They
guys.
look after me.
Yep.
Yeah, can't speak highly enough of this. So I've got the Jazz and now I've got the P.
Yeah.
Not much you can't do with the two of them.
Yeah.
The range. So.
Absolutely.
And as you know, these things are on many albums in the 50s and 60s.
Still to this day,
yeah,
man.
they are. Still people are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think people are realising, you know, yes, there are a lot of boutique basses out there, but at the end of the day, they're all modelled on the P and the Jazz.
Yeah.
And it all began with this thing. Back in 1955.
Well, we compared it to my Marcus Miller. Whatever, P7 I think it is. And to be honest, Marcus Miller is a nice bass and everything, but that thing blew it out of the water. Absolutely. That has the sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Which makes me want to sell my Marcus Miller. But anyway, that's another story. That's another story.
Yeah, but the Marcus Miller's, you know, purpose built, and
Yeah.
it's a nice bass, man. It's got a beautiful neck, a very small neck.
Yeah.
It's
But tone-wise, that thing ate it alive. It really did.
I really wish I
it
took
really did.
Really wishing I took that down to the Mr. Boogeyman bar, to be honest. And gave that a good workout, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I got to use Matt's 1972 jazz bass, which he also purchased from the Bass Centre many years ago.
Yep.
And that was a beauty, that thing. It's a beautiful bass.
Yeah.
Natural kind of wood colour with the, I think the block inlay, the black inlays on the fingerboard from memory.
Yeah.
But actually, he had his may have been a switchable. He may have had some work done to it, because I remember he had multiple knobs that pull out.
Yeah, he probably had.
He's probably had a modification done to that.
Yeah.
So,
the reason we're showing you our gear or discussing gear in general, it's not so much. Well, it's just an avenue where we know it's hard to afford all the vintage gear and all the top shelf gear. Seems to be a plethora of pedals and boutique guitars and boutique pedals and all this stuff out there which is worth a bucket load of money. Like for example, the Strat I showed you last podcast, I stopped in at M.A.D's in Fitzroy and I went and checked out the Silver Sky, the John Mayer signature, and I checked out the maple neck one, and it was a beautiful guitar, man. Beautiful. I played it, and then I thought, okay, how does this compare to a top shelf Fender? And they had a 62 reissue relict custom shop Fender in there, so I compared that, and it destroyed the Fender completely. Feel wise, the pickups, just generally, it destroyed. And this Fender was worth $6,200, and the PRS is $4,000. So I was ready to sell my Strat, that Warmoth that I showed last time.
There's a pattern here,
and I've done this a few times, and I ended up I went back to M.A.D's with my Warmoth Strat, which I paid all up to build that Strat today would be $1,970. I total all the parts. I bought parts second hand, like I bought the bridge pickup second hand, I bought the tuners second hand, the body and neck were new, the scratch plate was new, and I put it all together myself. So it might cost a little bit more for someone to put it together for you, but it's not that hard to put it together. But $1,970, and basically I went into M.A.D's and had them side by side, and I was prepared to sell mine and get that and sell some other stuff I'd have to. But I walked away with mine. It sounded equally as good. It was different. but it sounded equally as good.
Different character.
The John Mayer guitar didn't sound worth $2,000 more than what my Warmer Strat actually sounded like. It didn't feel. Actually, mine actually felt nicer. But that could be also because I'm used to the neck. The neck's a baseball bat on mine. And it's also, what do I call it? Torrefied or whatever. Baked maple. But you don't need to spend all that money. Like, yes, I admire PRS's drive to make the best instrument and all that. But my JV Squire, which cost me $650, and I put just a second-hand humbucker in it and second-hand locking tuners on it. So all up, you'd say around $800.
There you go.
It feels as nice and plays as well as my Warmer Strat. So you don't, if you're on a budget, don't blow it. Just, get what you can get. I shop mainly at the Music Swap Shop in Carlton.
Yeah.
Elgin. Hello, Brian.
Brian
Hello,
and
Jeremy.
The boys. Yeah.
And the boys.
Bought many things from there.
That shop is my one-stop shop.
Yeah, they got everything.
Like, there are strats in there that I would love to have that are worth around $800. The Fernandez, equally as good as any custom shop strat.
Yeah.
There's a whole heap of hype around gear and pedals and equipment, which really the answer's in your fingers, yeah?
Yeah. It's what flows through you too,
Yes. It's the sound you hear in your head and how you touch the fingerboard, how you pick, it's not worth blowing so much money on equipment. Speaking of which, I'm going to show you my tally. Right, this is my Telecaster. This is, I built this one as well. It's a Warmoth neck, which is about $450. Second-hand locking tuners, the Spertzels. The bridge is a Babix, which is, look them up. I used to have just a Wilkinson on there, but the humbucker never fit properly with the Wilkinson, so I got the chisel out and tried to chisel away so it would fit the humbucker, and then when I put the Wilkinson bridge on there back again, the cutout came outside the bridge. So I went on a search for finding a bridge that had a wider base plate. Yeah, that's why I ended up choosing this one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's called Babix Full Contact Hardware. Honestly can't. It was a couple of hundred. I think 200-300. I can't remember how much it cost, to be honest.
It's pretty cool. I like this guitar.
But
Beautiful, chunky.
I had the original. They've got these things called cam saddles. They're just a little cam slot that the saddles slot in. The little cam slots into the saddle. And when I first put this bridge on and set it up, it sounded like it sustained forever, but it sounded bleh. Sounded terrible. Absolutely terrible. They were just the normal steel cams in there. And then I looked on their website and you can actually get brass cams. And so I ordered a set of brass cams and it didn't cost much at all. I think $50 or $60. And chucked them in and it was transformed completely. So the original steel saddles, in my opinion, with this Babix bridge is terrible. Babix is Babicz, but you put the brass stuff in and it sounds phenomenal. Like, it really changed this guitar. It brought it back closer to what it was with the Wilkinson. It still sounded good with the Wilkinson. It was the Wilkinson had brass saddles. Scratch plate, eBay, was about $40 or $30. It's actual timber. I like timber scratch plates. The body, which this guitar weighs 5 kilo, so I don't know what that is in pounds, but it's too heavy, basically. It's a Schecter from the Van Nuys era, which is 70s and 80s. It was when Schecter was like Warmoth, where they sold just bodies and necks. I think they did sell complete guitars, but it was all... And I got this for $120 at the swap shop, the body. it weighs a ton, so I can't play this guitar for long on stage, or even sitting down, it weighs on you. It's that heavy. So, but the pickups I got second hand, tone zone in the bridge, and the neck is a Damasio, which I can't remember. It's not the Twang King. It's something, could be the Area 50 something, or I think it's an Area Tele neck pickup. The knobs I got from Swap Shop for nothing as well. These are actually very collectible Fender knobs, I found out. But yeah, right. Swap Shop for everything. It's the best place. These tuners were from the Swap Shop. This pickup was from the Swap Shop. Yeah, so I get a lot of stuff from the Swap Shop. But you can hear, this is just through Elvis's Marshall Origin 5. That's the bridge humbucker. We'll go neck humbucker. That's the neck, not humbucker, that's the neck pickup. That's in between the two. Has that telly sort of that telly sort of twang. I mix telly and twang together.
Love it.
That's the single coil on this and just this. Then this is just the single coil on this humbucker. Yeah. Has that telly vibe. The reason I wanted a telly is because I love Prince. I love Jeff Buckley. And Richie Kotzen. They're the three main reasons I got a telly and wanted a telly.
Very good reasons.
And it sounds, this tone zone in the bridge sounds pretty cool. Distorted. Yeah, it's a beautiful sounding guitar.
Love it.
The thing about this, Paul Reed Smith's always talking about sustain. This thing sustains like for ridiculous amounts of time. It's obscene how long it sustains for. You can build a guitar on a budget that does do that. My Squire sustains for ages. Yeah.
Well, Jimmy Page used the telly on the first Zeppelin album.
Mm-hmm.
That's a kind of well-known fact with and what a great album that was.
Yeah.
What a segue into practicing.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're here to help.
Yeah.
We
We would like to try and help. And if we can plug places like the Swap Shop and the Bass Centre, the guys at the Bass Centre, like I've been with you to the Bass Centre multiple times, just to help with choosing basses, and those guys there, they know their stuff like no one's business.
They've got a big range of all sorts of basses, whether it's electric uprights.
Yeah,
they've got everything in fretlesses
and their customer service is like amazing. It's
and they've got a room in the back for all their amplifiers, all the cabs, combos, and they're very helpful.
The guys at
love them.
The guys at the Swap Shop are exceptionally helpful too.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jeremy. He's a legend. Absolutely legend. Nicest guy.
Very knowledgeable.
Absolutely. And to Michael as well. Really good guy too.
Yeah, and Brian, what can we say about Brian?
Brian.
Good on you for bringing the store to Melbourne.
Yeah. I've been trying to help him put his kids through university.
They've brought a lot of joy to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Point it more to
you think the weather's nice.
It is, it's lovely. It's a cracker of a day. It's a cracker of a day.
I'm going to sit here, start whistling Dixie.
Alright guys, we've cut to my room because we had some issues with the audio, so I'm just re-recording a part. it's just some practice tips that I was taught along the way and that I like to share with you. One of the first practice tips I'll go through is, this is what helped build chops, so to speak. I did this to a metronome, and basically it was starting off at the metronome at like 40 and seeing how many notes I could fit in a minor, say it would be G minor. I'll just get the metronome going. And I always would do this, I'd always do this without, not being plugged in, so I can hear exactly what my fingers are doing and what the pick's doing. So start off with 4 notes. Then add a note. Sorry, I haven't done this for many years. And the idea is to make sure every note's clear and keep your fingers as close to the fretboard as you can. Keep your fingers as close to the fretboard as you can. And make sure every note's clear. So I'll try to go up to the 6th note in the G minor. So I'll just spend, when I was practicing, stop that metronome. So when I was practicing, I would spend, sorry about my voice as well, this is the consequence of Omicron. When I was practicing, I would spend hours just trying to add notes within that metronome click at 40 beats per minute. That's one exercise I would do, and that would build my chops. And the good thing about that is I was constantly using my pinky, which would build up my pinky strength. And yeah, and I'd focus on where my pick, the angle of my pick, hitting strings for the sound that I wanted, and make sure my fingers were as close to the fretboard and I was as efficient as possible. The other exercise I'll put up an image in a second, and here's an image. This is a chart of all the possible sequences of the 4 fingers, the 3 fingers, and the 2 fingers. And I would work through this, and you'll see I've got it down as a chart where I can actually document what BPM I'm doing in that. And again, I would be going up and down the fretboard with this. So just for a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, fingers close to the fretboard, fingers landing right behind the frets, and I'd go up to the 12th fret, and then go back down, and I'd increment the speeds as soon as I felt comfortable with that speed in that fingering. Another way you can do that is, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4 all on one string, you can go 1 on the E, 2 on the A, and 3 on the E, and 4 on the A. So you're string skipping, and you can even go from between the E and the D string and turn that into a string skipping exercise with all the different combinations of your fingers. Now that's something I endeavour to get back into again on a regular basis. It's not something in your practice routine. It's something that you can do maybe every second day. I was doing it every day for a few years, and it actually helped my legato especially. It helped everything. I was a much better picker back in those days. So there's some exercises, hope they help. They're things that can improve your playing. They're if you want to do 5 minutes a day on it, that will help. Anything will help. Just get those fingers on the fretboard. One of the segments on this show is going to be about individuals and their musical experiences and bands they've been in. So we might as well start with the band that I was in for 10 years, and that band was called Funky Brews. We were a funk rock band. The way we formed was I answered an ad in M.A.D, if any of you are familiar with that forum. A bass player named Cal Burns and a drummer Billy Ashworth were looking for a guitarist to do instrumental funk rock jams, and I auditioned for that and got that, and that was through a forum called M.A.D, and we spent ages just jamming out and getting to know each other. Really, we gelled really well. That was a musical relationship which I absolutely adored way back when. And then we decided to get other musicians, like the saxophonist and the keyboardist, and then a vocalist. So we decided to write songs, and we went on a search, and we ended up with a vocalist who stayed for the whole time, whose name was Sean Riley, who was a brilliant vocalist. And we had various saxophonists and keyboardists and on a fairly heavy rotation up until we discovered a saxophonist called Dan Lasner, who's probably stayed the longest. I think he stayed right near the end. He wasn't right there at the end. And the way we would write and rehearse and record is through complete improvisation. Like, sometimes someone will come with a riff or a chord progression, and we'd just jam it out and work it out and structure it into a song. And that was something that Sean Riley, the singer, he was brilliant at just coming up with lyrics and melodies on the fly. Supremely impressive. He was a great musician, great guitarist, great drummer, great bass player, great keyboardist, wonderful musician. And a lot of it stemmed around bass driven music, as we were a funk band, and Cal was a formidable bass player, and Billy was a great drummer, and they used to lock in so well, so perfectly. And yeah, I was in that for 10 years, and we wrote a ton of songs. We'd record every time we played around Melbourne heaps. It was a lot of fun. We'd rehearse once, sometimes twice a week, mainly once a week, which was a joy for me. That was awesome. And then all of it was predominantly originals. We did do some covers along the way for some gigs. We had some awesome gigs and a lot of fun. We had this gig where once we were playing this artsy-fartsy designer furniture. I guess you call it a shop. It was all expensive as furniture, and we had to play 3 sets, and we learnt some covers for those, but most of our stuff was just originals. And for that gig, we played the first set, and people were just standing around, drinking, chatting, discussing the furniture, not too involved with us at all. And then basically we were wondering, why are we here? Because our whole motive was to get people dancing. That's why we played the music we played, and for people to have fun. And that gig, we just felt like we were with a bunch of stuck-up artists. And then by middle of second set, we had people dancing, which was really nice, the dance floor. And then by the end of the night, everyone was dancing. People were dancing on their furniture. Girls were dancing around us on stage, and it got insane. It was awesome. It turned out to be a really good gig, and that was one of the joys of being in that band, is we were able to get a dance floor wherever, most places that we played. And the reason I left after 10 years was the music started to change direction to be a bit more, I guess I'd call it a bit ambient rocky and less funk orientated, and so it was changing direction. And I used to walk out of the house and see my wife and my 2 little kids on a Friday night sitting down to watch the movie, and I thought that's where I want to be. And so I quit that band and decided to just be a dad, be at home and stuff around at home with music. And unfortunately, after I quit that band, didn't continue, which was a great shame because they were actually very talented and I would have liked to see them continue. But I'll just share, this was a gig at the SB in the Gershwin room, and I'll share a couple of songs. The first song I'll share with you is called Break the Habit. This song was based off my riff writing. The audio's a little bit shit, so I apologise for that. But here's Break the Habit. This was an awesome song to play. It was a lot of fun.
It's all about breaking the habit.
was Break the Habit. Next song I'll share with you is called Everything is Everything. This was one of my favourite songs, and in these clips you can see issues of audio, the standard sort of things that happen at gigs. My whammy pedal didn't kick in for Break the Habit straight away, and just little bits and pieces. But that's the way it goes. The drummer's mic wasn't up when he had to do his rap section. Billy's mic wasn't up, but they eventually got it in the end. The performance, I think, was still pretty cool. And the next song is called Everything is Everything. the next thing I'd like to share with you is I used to write and record with a girl called Stephanie Kerr, who was a wonderful singer, and she was an amazing lyricist. I used to basically just throw chord progressions at her, and she would come up with lyrics and melodies on the spot, improvised, and she'd jot them down and write them down. And we wrote this one song, the one song I'm going to share with you, which I think is worth sharing, is called We Could Just Fly. And this song I love doing. I've recorded it all at home, and hope you enjoy it.
Deep of grief, said you got nobody, misery company, blinded by love I see. It was inevitable that you would feel this way. He keeps apologizing, but remains the same. My, why do I try between you and I? We should just fly. My, why do I try between you and I? We should just fly. Yeah, just fly. On you, it's hard sitting back, watching what you do to yourself and your health, but fine. But my, I try to emphasize, don't apologize, it's my life, not mine. But your drum pulls deep of grief. Come and float with me. My, why do I try between you and I? We should have fly. My, why do I try between you and I? We should just fly. Yeah, just fly. On happier days, time we spent chilling, but all of the sudden there was an eruption, and now I got nothing but freeze it and own it. I'm not your opponent. I'm not your opponent, so kick it, let's own it. My, we could just fly.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll start that again.
Okay.
About you, Steph, talking about, consistently and familiarising yourself with your instrument, and we know that a lot of the greats, guitarists and even bass players have done that. And particularly we know about how Eddie Van Halen used to carry the guitar everywhere, including the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's a skit on 2.5 Men where
Oh, really?
Eddie comes out of the toilet with his Frankenstein guitar.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah.
because that was, that's just what Eddie did.
Yeah.
But
When I used to practice back in the day, I actually used to do that.
yeah, I get it, man. I get it.
But then I thought, hygiene.
Yeah.
Not
Oh, look,
the best.
Yeah, what do you do?
Mm.
This might be a segue into the Van Hager era that we are going to talk about.
Yep.
In particularly the 5150 album, which was released in 1986
Yeah.
after Diamond Dave had ditched Van Halen in early to mid 1985.
Yep.
I guess it would be appropriate to tell the viewers what 5150 means.
Yeah. Go for it.
Well, it's actually a police code for pretty much someone criminally insane.
Yeah. Going so.
So, over the airways, when they're communicating, they call it a 5150 and everyone would know what that meant.
Yep.
So they appropriately, being a bunch of crazy men, joining forces with the old Montrose singer Sammy Hagar, who was pretty big in the 70s with the band Montrose, but then was booted out of Montrose.
No, he was about to record. Wasn't he about to record an album?
I read that he was actually fired from Montrose, the band.
He was recording an album though. He had recorded an album with them, and then Eddie's Ferrari broke down one day.
Yeah, but before that,
was it before that?
He was solo.
Oh, he was solo.
Yeah, so
okay.
He'd actually... We'll have to check these facts, but I only read yesterday that I think he stated that he was fired from Montrose.
What for? Why?
Didn't state why, but we can look into that.
Yeah.
And then he went on to do a solo career.
Okay.
And I think he'd just come off a 10-month tour of America. And you're right, they both share passions of cars, Eddie Van Halen and Sammy.
Yeah.
And they both had the same mechanic. So when Eddie went down there one day, there was this...
His Ferrari had broken down.
Yeah, and Sammy, there was a Ferrari that Sammy Hagar had used on I Can't Drive 55 video clip.
His Ferrari broke down too. Had been broken down.
Yeah. Well, it was in the workshop and Eddie goes, what's that? And is it Claudio? Oh, the mechanic said to him, that's Sammy Hagar.
Claudio, yeah, I think it was.
And I think Eddie was telling the mechanic that it hadn't been official. This was in July, I think. It hadn't been officially announced that David Roth had left the band.
Yeah.
And the mechanic goes, you should call Sammy Hagar.
Yeah.
Funny enough, he actually did.
Yeah.
And I think the very next day, because Sammy explained to him he just finished a 10-month tour, he's exhausted.
Yeah.
He called him up and Sammy goes, how about catch up in a week? And Eddie goes, how about we catch up tomorrow? Mm-hmm. And so Sammy went to his house and...
They first had a 2-hour meeting.
Yeah.
And which didn't really achieve much. And then I think Eddie said to Sammy, how about we jam?
And you know about the jam, yeah?
Yeah.
It went till midnight.
Yeah.
Like 10 hours. 10 to 12 hour jam.
Yeah.
This is Sammy's version saying that it was just... It was quite magical.
Flowed.
Yeah.
Favourite song off the album?
If I wanted to go commercial, I'd say Dreams. But you know what I'm going to tell you? The title track.
Good enough?
5150 is very underrated, man. That is a killer rock and roll song.
Yeah. Every song is a killer song.
It is. But 5150, because what viewers don't realise is, and I heard this back in the days, is that no one had really made a rock and roll album using electric drums.
They were the Simmons drum kits.
So Van Halen...
And they're all pads.
Yeah.
Drum electric.
So it was quite daring of Van Halen
Yep.
to do that. Now, we all know Alex is a bloody good, accomplished drummer.
Absolutely.
So he had electronic pads and acoustic. He mixed both.
Yep. Did
So-
he? Was it right that he used the pads underneath the toms as like triggers or something?
Well, maybe, but I definitely distinctly remember on the 5150 Live Without a Net
Yeah.
that you can see the electric pads as well as the whole kit that
Yeah.
combined.
Yeah.
But he knew how to merge the two together.
Okay.
So the critics were saying that couldn't be done. That you can't make a rock and roll album with electronic drums. Well, guess what? 5150 went to number one for 5 weeks.
Yeah.
That was success for not only Van Halen, because they never reached a number one album with David Lee Roth, even though we've acknowledged how great that music was. But Sammy Hagar had never had an album go number one. He'd had 3 platinums,
Yeah.
but not number one gold.
Yeah.
So that was big for both of them.
And what was interesting too is that a week before they started recording in '85, Eddie rang up Ted Templeman.
Templeton, he is the one that done all the David Lee Roth era music.
And Ted Templeton said he can't produce them because he was producing Roth.
Yeah, which we all know with as it came out.
Yeah.
That he was already liaising with
Vi, Billy Sheehan, and who was the drummer?
Bissonette.
Greg Bissonette.
Greg Bissonette, because Matt's he's a bass player, isn't he? Matt Bissonette. That came out later, didn't it?
And so Eddie thought, well, we'll produce it ourselves.
That's correct, but then Sammy, I have to tell this little story about when Sammy first went to 5150 Studios. He reckons there was copious amounts of empty beer bottles.
Yeah.
Some of them half full with cigarette butts in them. Guitars lying against the wall, just lying up against it.
Yeah.
And Sammy, for a moment, thought, "What is going on here?"
Yeah.
And he just thought, "Oh my God, these guys are loose."
Okay.
And I think that was all quashed. All these fears were when they jammed.
Yeah.
But also when they did their first gig live on tour. So Sammy would never drink during the day. He would never do. He'd save it, and he was very private. As you've told me about Sammy, his own entourages, he says that he's very private when he does a tour. And then when the first night that they toured, Eddie and Alex were getting drunk, and he's thinking to himself, "Oh my God, how is this gig going to turn out?" It turns out they absolutely destroyed it.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't released 5150 as an album, only they'd released Why Can't There Be Love? Why Can't This Be Love? As a single. So they went out that night and performed 5150, the album, before the release.
Wow.
And they blew everyone away.
Yeah.
And and Sammy said that was no more fear after that.
Yeah.
To the point where they were confident they could play anything live, just like that.
Yeah.
Whether it was Won't Get Fooled Again by The Who or Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah. I have to say my favourite song.
Yes, sorry, mate. The next thing I was going to say to you, what was that? Was a big diversion.
My favourite song, Best of Both Worlds.
Oh.
That's just an insane piece
That's
of
got
music.
That's got an AC/DC feel.
Yeah, I can see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
that rock. Yeah. And I've always thought that. But again, it's Van Halen.
Yeah.
It's Van Halenised. But that's a great song. Same with Summer Nights.
Yeah.
Like it's a bloody good album.
That was one of the songs they jammed with when they first got together.
Do you know what?
Getting the feel for it.
I missed that, but you're right. I read that.
Yeah.
Because their process of writing, many people may not know this, but 5150 was musically was written before Sammy came.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what they did, Sammy would make up the lyrics as they would jam it out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what he did. He wrote lyrics.
And he blew them away that he could do that. Yeah.
If you listen to the lyrics of Sammy Hagar,
Yeah.
he's quite talented.
Yeah.
With his
His
ability
lyrics
to...
and his vocal abilities.
Yeah.
Oh.
His vocal abilities, like... And they were going to get people like... They were getting so desperate when David Lee Roth dumped them,
Yeah.
apparently, that they were even going
Which
to try...
he didn't.
No, that's right.
He didn't.
I think David Roth was absolutely exhausted from touring.
And he wanted to just explore something
Yeah.
different and new.
But from the Van Halen perspective, the brothers, it
Yeah.
would be devastating.
Yep.
You know, a man with that charisma,
Yeah.
and he could sing,
Yep.
and he could perform. But I've lost my train of thought. What were we talking about just before we said that?
We're talking about his vocal ability.
They were going to try out Jimmy
which singer?
Barnes.
Oof, no.
They were actually...
No.
No, it's listed everywhere in the literature you read.
I've heard it, but
Yeah.
I'm just so glad that never
No,
happened.
of course.
That would be horrific. That'd be like Guns and Axl singing for AC/DC, which is horrific. That was just wrong.
Even though someone said to me the other day that he actually did a good job. I was like, please.
No.
Don't mix AC/DC with
Guns and
Guns N'
Roses.
Roses. I'm not knocking Guns N' Roses. Appetite for
Yeah.
Destruction's a brilliant album.
Yeah.
But, you know, AC/DC are in a school, in a kind of, they're in a world of their own, man.
Jimmy Barnes in Cold Chisel.
Was unbelievable.
Brilliant.
Him and Mossy together.
Yeah.
Oh.
Amazing.
And some of his not popular but non-popular solo, not Working Class Man, but there's a blues album. There's an album he did which was really bluesy, and I cannot recall it.
You
but
mean the soul album?
I don't know, but it was one of his.
Terrible.
There was one that I heard and was actually okay, but he's screaming.
He just screams too much.
Yeah, when he doesn't,
Yeah.
he goes.
He can actually sing.
He can actually sing.
Yeah.
I think it's what people expect him to do.
Yeah.
So he goes. But I think when you threw him in a corner pub with someone like Moss, I think you'd see some magic again.
I don't know. Yeah. I think
I'd like to-
that ship has sailed with him.
Yeah.
Ian Moss's magic.
Oh, geez,
Full
brilliant.
stop.
Yeah. We're gonna have to do a session on Cold Chisel.
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
and you know, and Ian Moss.
Yeah.
But
Back to
back to Van Halen. We were talking about about Sammy Hagar's range and what had
We were
happened.
talking about how it was going to potentially be.
Jimmy Barnes.
Jimmy
And
Barnes.
there was a couple other American singers that I couldn't.
Thank you, Sammy, for saving us from that atrocity.
But, you know, Sammy said something really interesting when I was reading some of the literature. And he said that era with him and you know, Alex, Eddie and Michael Anthony, he goes, musically, they were all in love with each other.
Yeah.
And you can clearly hear it in their music.
In their music, yeah.
And he reckons it was like that right up to Balance. Mm-hmm. Even though that's when things turn ugly. But that 5150 album was very special, man.
Yeah.
Because it had a big element of Eddie's, you know, keyboard skills.
And that's something that Roth didn't want in Van Halen. Like, whenever Eddie used to jump on a piano, Roth, well, this is what Eddie said, that, what are you doing on that? You're a guitar god. No one wants to hear you play piano. And so none of their tracks ended up with any of Eddie's piano or keyboard skills.
That's a really good point, because that's why they had so many. Like, you know, right now off FUCK, that's banked from way back in the studios. He made that up a long way before Sammy came along.
Yeah.
And that kind of extension of what you're saying here.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, that worked for the David Lee Roth era.
Yeah. The David Lee Roth
Jump's the
era.
only thing that he really did on a keyboard.
Yeah.
Because they would have heard that and gone, oh, that's a hit.
Yeah.
So they, you know, Ted Templeton and the works would have said, that's on.
Yeah.
It's got to be on. But 5150 had Why can't this be love?
Mm-hmm.
Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Love walks in.
Mm-hmm.
They're all keyboard orientated.
Yep.
You know, what an album, man.
Oh yeah.
Like, Get Up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge.
Like, for all the metalheads,
Yeah.
they'd be going crazy when that came out.
Yeah.
Because that is intense.
And finishing on Inside. Yeah.
That just sums up Van Halen, yeah?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
song.
Yeah.
Like, they really didn't take life.
Seriously.
They took music very seriously.
Yeah. They had a work ethic associated with that.
And
But was it work? I don't think it was work for them.
there was a
It
quote.
was love.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's a quote of Eddie, and I've just forgotten it. It goes something like, it was never about anything but the music.
Yeah.
And he said it was always about the music.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's but 5150, man, it was they wrote that quickly.
Yeah.
It just poured.
Yeah.
It poured out, and
And his guitar tone on that, a lot of people don't like it. I absolutely adore it.
I know, because
He still used his
yeah.
old Marshall and his Frankenstein guitar.
Mm-hmm.
He was using that still. But he also used
He experimented.
a Steinberger with EMGs.
That's in the Live Without a Net video.
He used it on the record as well because you can't... On a normal Floyd Rose tremolo, when you drop it and you're holding a chord down, the notes go out of key with each other because it's all different tensions. Whereas a Steinberger guitar, it stays in pitch.
Right. So he'd figured that out pretty quickly, I'm assuming. And
Well, that's the design. Yeah, that's...
he knew that. He knew what he
Yeah.
wanted. He could hear
and
what
you
he
can
wanted.
hear it in songs. Yeah, on that album. Yeah.
But he's... You're right, mate. He took it... I think 5150, he took it to a new level
Yeah.
with his guitar playing.
Yeah.
And he continued to do that.
A lot of people don't think it's that his old Marshall and that because he put like a detune over it. And,
He processed it a little
yeah,
bit, yeah?
through an Eventide unit, and so, but yeah, it was still his old.
But
rig.
it's
his
still
old
Eddie.
rig. It's still Eddie. Exactly.
At the end of the day, you're right. If you hear 5150, that's Eddie.
Yeah.
It's just he's added a few ingredients
Yeah.
or mixes into the cocktail,
Yeah.
the musical cocktail, shall I say?
Yeah. Apparently, he saw Sammy's rig was, as we know, Sammy's an awesome guitar player.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he saw all these effects unit, and he told his all these different Eventides and whatever Sammy had, and he told his guitar tech, "I want some of that." Yeah, go get me some of that.
Can I just say though, the fact that he played before that with very limited effects,
Yeah.
he's got to say something about this man's ability. Yeah,
Yeah,
to go
absolutely.
from virtually no effects,
Yeah.
just a little bit of spice,
Yeah.
to 5150.
It's a full on rig. Yeah.
That's someone that knows how to be flexible and
Yeah.
diverse with their playing, mate. That's why he's one of the greatest.
Yes, he certainly is.
And
And he
5150,
would be. Yeah.
5150 is an insane, well, a very appropriate title.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it takes off, yeah?
Yeah. And they came back from. Well.
They were miserable, man.
Yeah.
They were miserable. They were desperate. They even got to a point where the producers at Warner Brothers were saying,
Do a sort of.
don't call yourself Van Halen anymore because you've lost David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
And
Well, they were looking at doing.
Van Hager. Do you know Van Hager was put out there?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were talking when Sammy
I'm glad they
arrived.
didn't
They
change
didn't.
it. Yeah.
And Sammy said that was never going to happen.
No, I'm glad they did.
But the Warner Brothers producers had mentioned that, man, you can't get us. David's gone. You don't.
They
call
were
yourself-
looking at
don't-
doing a gig with like people filling in for David, like Phil Collins and all
Yeah.
these big names. They were looking at
But
doing a
they-
tour like that. And
But they
it's
said
like,
to him, "You might not."
I'm glad that never happened either.
They said to him, "You might have to get rid of the Van Halen name."
Yeah.
But that. But
And
you know
some
that.
tea.
But you know that they were never going to do that. Yeah.
I'm glad they never did that. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, man, I know it takes, 4 quarters to make a whole.
Yep.
Yeah. At the end of the day, man, Eddie and Alex had started a legacy there, yeah? It was,
Yeah. 2 halves make a whole 2.
Yeah, that's right. But they were big, yeah. It was an integral part of the band and sound.
And I want to raise an integral part of the band and sound, who doesn't get the credit and who is, I think, overshadowed by Eddie and Alex and whether it be Roth or Hagar, is Michael Anthony. Because you see people talk about Michael Anthony in that era and they focus purely on his vocals, which were awesome, but they
Absolutely.
focus on his vocals and his larger-than-life personality and antics on stage. But he still, to cut it with Alex and Eddie, and to fit and to have that album is also showcases his abilities on bass and just his rhythm and his, like, to be a tight rhythmic play, like with good tone, takes years of effort and work and
he was working at it as a youngster.
Awesome bass player.
He was working at it as a youngster.
And we seem to forget Eddie chose him because he was blown away by his bass playing and his singing.
And interesting, the latest podcast with Joe Rogan and David Lee Roth, David Lee Roth makes a statement which I don't agree with, but I understand why he says it. Yes, he was chosen for his vocal range, but then Dave said you could get a bass player anywhere. No, you can't.
No, you can't.
You actually can't.
No, you can't.
He did say that, and I know what David was saying because he was concentrating on Michael Anthony's vocals. Yeah, and that was part of the ingredient. But what they don't, David Lee Roth's, he's a fine musician, but he's not a bass player, man.
There's so much more to
Yeah.
just the bass playing too. It's the way the musicians interact with each other, playing
Michael Anthony
live
was
or in
amazing.
the studio.
To hold his rhythm
Yep.
while he does what he does on stage is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
To sing while playing bass is incredibly difficult.
Absolutely.
Backings, whatever, it's still difficult to be working a microphone
Yep.
while your hands are busy fretting an instrument.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
he's amazing. And he used a Yamaha BB, the BB series Yamaha during the 5150 recordings, I'm quite sure.
Mm-hmm.
So he went through a lot of, a jazz P bass type of configuration.
Yep.
Phenomenal bass player.
Absolutely.
And to be honest, I like to slide octaves on the bass,
Yeah.
and I got that from Michael Anthony.
Yeah.
Even coming in on a slide back into a song like, for example, "Rock and Roll" by Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
The in betweens. That all came from Michael Anthony for me.
Yeah.
He's big on octave slides and
Yep.
he adds colour.
Yep.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
And it really becomes apparent. Like, I mess around with bass. I like
Yeah.
to mess around with bass for my recordings at home. Just having a tone and, the way you touch the strings, the way you pluck and fingers or pick, all of it
Yeah, and we
makes
know
such a difference to your sound.
And we know he's a seasoned player, but he's done the hard yards
Yeah.
as a youngster, man.
Yeah.
He was playing and singing in Snake.
Yep.
So a band back in the day before Van Halen, I think that's where Eddie saw him
Yeah.
playing with Snake. He's a phenomenal bass player.
Yep.
And he's got a beautiful rig now. Like he's got the PVB series, which is in a tube.
Yeah.
Gorgeous rig. And, he uses, I think he's with Schecter now.
Okay.
Custom made. It's a beautiful bass with the chili inlays on there.
Mm-hmm.
It's full credit to him. He hangs around with Sammy. He's in the circle.
Yep.
Chicken Foot. I mean,
Yep.
we're talking about Satriani here and Chad Smith and Jason Bonham.
Yeah.
You know,
They wouldn't have just any bass player.
Jason Bonham is incredible.
Yeah.
And so's Chad Smith, Bob.
Yeah.
Just quietly.
Yeah.
Just quietly.
Yeah.
He's an amazing drummer. Another one influenced by John Bonham.
Mm-hmm.
John Bonham. John Bonham. That's Robert Plant off the song I'm saying.
Just to finish off this Van Halen segment. Don't listen to Van Halen 3. Now, this is coming from an Extreme fan.
Yeah.
I'm an Extreme fan, so I love what Gary did in Extreme. But please don't listen to Van Halen. It's one of the worst albums on the face of the earth.
But can I ask you, can we say one positive out of that? And I'll tell you what that is.
I'm struggling to find one, but good.
The fact that they did an Australian tour with it.
Yes,
It got them out here, man.
Yeah.
It got them here.
It meant we got to see Eddie play live, and you got to meet him.
And I got to meet the band. I'm processing in my head now where the photos are, and I don't know.
Yeah. We might have to do a podcast on a different kind of truth.
Oh.
What a way to finish, yeah?
That was the official last album of Van Halen.
Yeah,
and that was with David Lee Roth.
Every song on that album, that album was just one of the best albums of all time.
And there was no keyboards on that.
No.
Which is
raw,
fitting,
it was,
because it kind of ended how it began.
I'm going to listen to that on the way home, I think.
It ended how it began.
Yeah.
I think, and in between...
Yep.
And in between was an amazing era of, with Sammy Hagar. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which began with the album we've reviewed today, 5150.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a game changer, mate. 5150 for Van Halen.
It was their Back in Black.
Yeah. That's a really good one, man. Except the only difference
two albums where they got new singers. I know, he didn't die.
Didn't die. That's the only difference.
Yeah, but where they got a new singer and they just absolutely slaughtered it.
Absolutely. That's a really good point, man.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you something, Back in Black is a damn good album to bring out after Bon Scott died.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a risk.
Yeah.
Sammy Hagar 5150 was a risk.
We'll eventually look at that album.
Back in Black?
Yeah.
That's after we've critiqued Bon Scott era.
Yeah.
Which is
absolutely
probably one of the greatest ever.
Yeah. Now, just another thing that I wanted to bring up is give our audience an album that's worth listening to that they would never have heard of, or potentially never have heard of. Yeah, that will either inspire them or lift their playing to another level.
I'm thinking the Bombastic Meatbats, is it?
Yeah.
They're mate,
Chad Smith.
That album is fucking great.
Yes, it is.
Because it's got everything. They do a bit of a Hendrix thing. They do a bit of a...
Just wait. Okay, this segment we're going to just... It's a short one where we're going to recommend an album that you might not have heard of, that you might enjoy. And Elvis, you have an album.
Chad Smith from Chili Peppers has got a band called the Bombastic Meatbats.
Mm-hmm.
Steph put me onto them, and they are. I don't know how to describe them. They're like a fusion band, but Chad Smith's. I can't remember which concert it is. It's live, obviously, and
at the Iridium Jazz Club or something.
And he's got in
New York
an amazing group of musicians with him, a keyboardist,
it's live
guitarist.
on YouTube.
Yeah, and Chad Smith's not. He doesn't take life too seriously, and but their ability to be so versatile is amazing. They do
it's instrumental, so
but they do a Jimi Hendrix and they do a groove out of Moby Dick's, the riff off Moby Dick from Zeppelin, but very tasteful album, very diverse, and
there's a live YouTube couple of gigs. Yeah.
There's a lot of colour in their music, and it's a great. You feel good.
Yeah.
Listening to it, and it actually motivates you.
Yeah, it does, big time. The way I found out about that was I'm a big fan of the guitarist Jeff Coleman, and
That's him.
check out his album Shedding Skin. And I've listened to him for years, and on a YouTube search I stumbled across Chad Smith and the Bombastic Meatbats, and that's
Mate, great album, and I every now and then I put it on.
yeah.
In fact, I'm due to put it on
Yeah.
probably today. So I might cook putting on that.
Yep.
I think it's an amazing album.
Now, the album I want to suggest, it's a instrumental album as well, and it's probably not many people would have heard of it, but the album is by a gentleman called Brett Garsed, an Australian guitarist, and it was pivotal for me when I heard this album. The album's called Big Sky, and his playing and musicality and the way he creates pitches, textures is just sublime. It is an album that you need to check out. Big Sky, I think he released it early 2000s. I'd have to check.
Okay.
But that's an album. If you love guitar music, you need to check that out. It's phenomenal. Now, just in this little segment, it's a gear review. It's not necessarily going to be just pedals. It'll be equipment that's cheap and affordable, that you can find secondhand, and that works well to get yourself a good sound without busting the bank. I don't think you need to spend heaps of money on heaps of gear. Like at the moment, focus for this one is the Maxon SD9 Sonic Distortion, and this is a wonderful pedal. I use it whenever I can't use my amps. So I'll just zoom in on it. So this is my clean sound. Just a reminder that it's going through Elvis's Marshall Origin 5 amp. Yeah.
A little valve.
And just the distortion sound. Like, that's a pretty good sound for just one single pedal through that amp. This pedal cost me, if I remember correctly, from the swap shop about $130. And your amp, how much did that cost you, Al?
Brand new, about $500.
$500. So that's
Delivered.
a pretty cheap rig. You could play a gig with
It
that.
was during COVID.
Yeah, anyway. Like, give you an idea of, you can really... To me, I don't like that, so I keep the tone pretty low. It sounds a lot nicer. A bit more of that brown sound vibe. Yeah. So it's, yeah, that's just the... And it's actually got quite a bit of output too. Like if you want to push, like... Yeah, and it likes other pedals as well. Works well with other pedals. This is what I use just to gain stack with it whenever I'm using it. The soul driven. Yeah,
That's wicked, man.
not a bad sound for a cheap rig.
Just goes to show you, mate, you don't need to spend big dollars
Yeah.
to be satisfied, yeah?
No, you don't need to. break the
Musically,
bank.
like, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Nice, Steph.
cool.
I like. Yeah, welcome to today's session on Show Us Your Rig. Now, I think on our earlier podcast, Steph and I demonstrated our go-to instruments. So Steph showed his his Warm-Up Strat, and I showed my Fender Jazz. Now today, or since the podcast, I've acquired a 50s reissue Fender P-Bass. So it's a very old style with the single coil pickups, that beautiful old style fire red engine paint job with the maple wide neck, standard volume and control, and a Dyes gold scratch plate. Typical workhorse. And as some of you may well know, that this style of P-Bass has appeared on many albums through, second half of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and it sits beautifully in the mix. Just those mids, they cut through that mix, and really, it's a real workhorse. So I'm going to play this today through my Fender Rumble 800 head, which is 800 watts RMS. Pretty powerful, made for high output cabinets. So the Fender Rumble is based on the old Fender Bassman, which is a very popular bass amplification system from way back in the early days of Fender. So this consists of standard, your gain knob, master, typical EQs, bass, low mids, high mids, and treble. But this also comes with some extras, including overdrive. So you can control your level of overdrive, which can really dirty up that P-Bass sound. It's a nice feature. And also you have select buttons for bright, contour, and vintage. So if you're looking for that vintage sound, or you want that brightness in your mix, particularly playing with the fingers, and a contour to round that off, it's a good added feature, and it's well priced. I picked this up from the Bass Centre in South Melbourne from Mel and the boys, and they looked after me there. And I tell you what, you get more bang for your buck with this thing, that's for sure. I also do have the Mark Little 3, which is a great head. It's, I think, a 600 watt head. It's beautiful. This is very versatile. Unfortunately, I've got a little problem with it cutting out, so I'm going to get this sorted out. Nothing that I'm sure that can't be fixed, but so I really have two great amplifiers between live and studio to really help get a versatile array of music. And here I have a Mark Bass cabinet. Mark Bass is an Italian-made company. Marco, I can't remember his surname, but I think in the late 90s, he devised a new amplification system, and it's absolutely brilliant. Excuse me. So this is a 212 cab. It's 800 watts, 4 ohms. It's quite a beast, this thing. The beauty of it is that the coupling of the 212s, you really can get some serious bottom end on this cabinet, and the drivers are so well made. It gives you that nice definition for the highs, mid to highs as well. It's a quite a well-rounded cabinet, and that is discontinued now. It's been discontinued for 2 or 3 years. They've been superseded, but weighing in at less than 30 kilos, I think it's about 28 kilos thereabouts. but they're quite sought after and very hard to pick up second hand now because nobody wants to part with them, understandably. So I'll give you a little demonstration of what this thing can do. Just it's quite tasteful. Oh. So as you can see, it's a really well-rounded bottom end, and also moving up the fretboard, it can do all sorts of. It's a well-rounded rig, very well-rounded rig, and very good for rock players, funk players, jazz players. Very versatile. So look, this is what I use. It's quite a simple setup, and just touching on my equalisation, I'll generally use the vintage button because I really love that sound, hence the P bass. But also I have my bass setting at roughly 1 o'clock. Also the low mids sit around that. The high mids and the trebles are roughly at about 10 o'clock, 10 to 11 o'clock. So you play around with it. I have my tone right up on the bass, so you can really hear that that finger on the fingers on the string. Like, it's really apparent, and obviously volume right up, and it enables me to play particularly the blues rock stuff, which I really love. So that's my segment today for Show Me Your Rig. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed the segment, and see you on the next podcast. Keep rocking on and practice away.